Welcome to the CEO Pulse podcast, where you get the real, the raw, and the mind of entrepreneurship. So today we have Mr. Justin Colby with us. Justin, you're a real estate machine, and you're an entrepreneur extraordinaire. You run over seven businesses at this point right now, right?
Yeah, I'm either a founder or a co-founder or co-owner of seven businesses.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So it's really, really interesting. We get a lot of people talking about real estate and in our circle, but we also, some people venture out into different verticals, and the experience is always different.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you tell us, just elaborate a little bit about, what is it that you do?
Sure. Well, so first of all, thank you for having me here. I love it. I've known you for a very long time, so I love CEO Pulse. I'm very excited to be here.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
To kind of answer your question, it's not just as direct as like giving you a direct answer. Again, I own or a part owner or founded, 7 companies, but the similarities tend to line up more than the differences is the reality. The differences may be subject matter. Like, for example, I have an Amazon company that I own and run. Selling protective glasses on Amazon has zero connection to like real estate. There's almost nothing that is similar about that business, right? However, in that business, having someone manage it, having someone continue to run ads, continue to do accounting, continue to make sure product, and having employees is similar to real estate. And that's really the same aspect, where in real estate, having a manager, having an acquisition guy, disposition guy, lead managers, it's about becoming a good leader and being able to educate them on what they need to do efficiently. Same thing. Real estate, Amazon, having someone and being a good leader in educational to them so that they can understand what they need to do, how they need to do it, how to get the results you want. That is the same. And it's the same across all businesses. I'm a part owner of a title company. Same thing. Making sure the people in that company know what to do, know what to expect, and can achieve the results. So a lot of it is leadership. The granularity of each business, there's almost never any similarities, right? Like wholesaling and flipping, there's a lot of similarities. But when you take that over to, again, whether it's Amazon, title companies, not a lot of similarities. The similarity comes with processes and people. That's the similarities.
Yeah, it's almost like a cardinal rule, right? Take care of your people and have a great team in place, and you're going to be able to tweak and adjust and create operating systems that that will support that, whatever that company is.
Yep.
And across different verticals, I've spoken to people in restaurant business, and it's one of the things that I get first. Now, taking care of their staff, right? So you have normally, whenever, this is a question that I have for you. So normally, whenever we do a discovery session, whenever I do a discovery session and go into a new company to do my organizational psychology process, if it's a startup or a level 1 company, less than 10 employees, the priorities are as follow, right? So we have profit, and then people, and then systems.
Okay.
So we focus on the profit first. And then, as a secondary.
Have you read that book, by the way?
Profit, People, and Systems?
Profit First.
Profit First? No, I haven't.
Knowing your background, you would love it.
Yeah?
It is about this.
Okay, cool.
So
I'm
Profit
gonna
First,
pick
great
it
book.
up. So, but yeah, so we do profit first, people, and then systems. A lot of times, people, especially bootstraps, right, want to focus on the culture and what they can do for the staff. But if you can't keep the lights on,
what's the point?
Yeah, that second phase is never gonna kick in. So, what's your take on that? I mean, do you agree with that?
Yeah. So let me give you a little quick background, right? So I've been flipping homes and been owning a company since I graduated UCLA, went straight into sales and marketing. From there, immediately owned my own company. I've never been employed, ever, right? I'm 38 years old. All the way up until this last year, I actually took a risk. One of my buddies was starting an iBuyer company, just like Opendoor, OfferPad, Zillow, Redfin, in the real estate space. He really wanted me to help him. Well, I knew I'd have to leave my company and what I built to do so. Long story short, I took the risk. I took the leap of faith. And I went into it. It was one of the best learning experiences I possibly could have. The quality of people, Harvard MBAs, Stanford MBAs. I mean, it was like the top of the top. People who were founders of Intuit, people who were founders of Lending Home. I mean, these are the people I'm sitting around every day, right? Multi-billion-dollar companies, and I'm in these meetings. I'm working with them. But at the end of the day, it didn't work out as we wanted it to, right? So now I'm back into my business, and more so now than ever. And I say that to bring up to your question, which is my philosophy of business has changed over the years. Over the years, initially, it's about, okay, let me get off my buddy's couch. Let me go make some money so I can stop being broke as hell, right? Like stop being a broke Joe.
You got to get out of survival mode first before you can thrive.
That was my first thing, right? Oh my God, I did it. Holy hell. Now I can afford some rent. And not even my own rent, but to share rent. But I can afford something. Okay, so now it's about how do I actually get a little financial freedom in the sense of okay, I'm making enough money to live on my own, no roommates, no nothing. Great, did that. And then it started to get into this I'm catching a wave of momentum. I'm really starting to make some money. And then you start to believe in yourself. And sometimes that turns into false confidence, right? And so some of that started to happen, specifically with me, where then it's almost let me see how big I can go. Let me see how big I can make this. And I'm going to be the biggest, and I'm going to be the best, and I'm going to have, and love them or dislike them, hate them. Grant Cardone is very much this way, right?
Right.
It is as big as you can get. I am the best. I'm going all in, and I love a lot of that. But what I have found that I believe to be a little bit more honest and true is there is a certain level of you need to look at your profitability of it and get real with it. Because what happens when I went through that phase, I was going to be the biggest. I was going to be the best. I was going to do the more deals than everyone. I was going to have more revenue than everyone. Nowadays, people talk about 100 deals as if it was 10. Yeah, right? Man. Everyone's 100 deals, man, and we're gonna get to 200, right? There was a time, and you've been around long enough, where Sean and myself and maybe a handful of other in Phoenix were doing 100 deals a year. It was not common. It was very difficult.
Times have changed quite a bit.
Super, right? But that used to be a benchmark for everyone to be oh, I'm going to go do that. Then it got to a revenue number. Then it got to a number of deals that is crazy big. And then the biggest and the baddest. So I bring all this to light, again, to answer the profitability start. I got to a point where we were single-digit profitability in our business 4 years ago-ish, I think. It was about 4 years ago. When we washed the numbers out, we were at a single-digit profitability. What kind of business do you have? That's not a business.
Yeah.
It might be a high-paying job. It's not a business. You're one little thing away from just nothing, right? And I realized it's not about that. It's not about the biggest. It's not about the baddest. It's not about who can do the most deals. And it's about your bottom line. Who can be the most profitable? And so I learned a lot of that over the last year working with some really high-level people. Again, like I said, some of the venture capitalist business is way different than what you and I do, right? It is big boy business,
right?
Tens of millions of dollars, right? And so I realized coming back into the company, into my company that still is around, still existing, it's not about being the biggest, baddest, saying I did 300 deals this year in Phoenix, and I'm in 18 markets and I'm this and I'm that in the show. I did get caught up in that at one point. And now I realize or I just make more money than anyone else. And by the way, to do that, you actually have to work. That is the missing link. You have to put in the hours. Now, again, I brought up Grant Cardone. I don't think he doesn't work. I actually do believe he works and he's a hustler. But where I think a lot of society is caught up is they hear someone like Grant and they respect him and revere him, but then they don't actually get the profitability of it all is by you doing the work. Not hiring and growing and scaling and launching 800 different markets as a real estate investor, and I'm sticking to that subject at the moment, because now your scalability might be up, but your profitability is way down because you have operational costs everywhere.
Exactly.
And then the leadership.
Exponentially, according to whatever you're trying to reach.
Totally. Yeah. So I'm way more focused on profitability than anything else, to the point where I may not hire. I may keep it. I have one guy that runs the entire company and myself. I might be okay with that. And I say might because nothing's ever certain. But right now it is as close to certain as you could possibly get. And it's because I really value what you just said, profitability, people, and process. That was my big takeaway and what I firmly believe in business. And so hopefully I'm answering your question. I kind of went on for a while, but that is a big thing that I think a lot of people aren't really digesting right now, which is become profitable. And I don't mean profitable by like, I used to have a rule, right? I run a mastermind. I know you're aware of it.
Yeah.
When people say I want to go higher, I say, are you paying yourself $250,000 a year? Yourself, not the company. Are you paying that? If they don't say yes, they don't get to hire, because I believe that's laziness.
Mm-hmm.
You don't do anything. Everyone in the world would raise their hand that I want to go make $250,000 a year. So if you're not, why? Well, one of the reasons is because you just don't want to do something, so you're going to hire it out. Well, now you have a cost to it. You have an expense, right? That's the big issue now. Everyone wants to be the Grant Cardones, the Gary V's, and I love them both. And I personally have paid a lot of money to sit down with them alone, right, and really get advice from them. And I really believe a lot of what they have to say. My perspective has just changed a little bit. Specific to this like $10 million and under revenue business, it's a different business. A lot of times they're talking at about a much larger level. In our business, you're making $2 million as a real estate investor. There's not a lot of people you should be having in that business, right? And so that's the answer, is profit first. The only way to do that and to increase and keep your profitability high is you're doing the work, the acquisitions and the dispositions. I know people don't love that, but that's the reality.
Yeah, it's not the sexy part of business. One thing that a lot of people also don't understand is that, like, for example, these guys have been decades in the making.
Yeah, decades.
Decades
Right.
in the making. It's not something that happened overnight. Maybe the popularity, bumped up over the last, few years, but they've been grinding and hustling and doing their work for years, and just kind of fine tuning their themselves first,
Yep.
and then the business. I agree with you too. I think that the right approach whenever starting or bootstrapping a business, and it doesn't matter what vertical it is to come in and then learn it, understand it, do whatever it takes to get your business to stand on its own 2 feet, and then you start delegating and automating, and you can fine tune it that way. But you have to do profit first to keep the lights on. And then you plug people in wherever it's makes sense to plug people in.
That's right.
And then you can automate. You can create systems to step away from the business.
Well, and I even have where you plug people in. I've even gotten even more. I almost feel like I'm the old man. Like, I know there's a lot of, I don't know how old are you?
30s, 6 turning 37. So.
We're the old boys. So I'm 38, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of this industry and a lot of this space and a lot of what's seen on Instagram and YouTube tends to be a little bit younger, and like I feel like I'm more the conservative one now. I think I used to be the young hotshot, right? But the reality is, when you are going to hire for those things that you mentioned, like, it is only things that literally are not connected to revenue. Like, a lot of times it could be a VA. And I say that because, yeah, if you don't want to scrub a spreadsheet for what needs to be done, or you don't want to do, accounting or bookkeeping, hire a bookkeeper, hire a VA, potentially hire a personal assistant, right? That can do the little things, like for us wholesale investors, putting a marketing piece together to sell your home, the email, the pictures, the link. Have your virtual assistant or your personal assistant be doing that. That doesn't generate you revenue. But what still generates revenue is you go bring the buyers to the house and sell the house. By the way, that would probably be the only position I would like to say I would hire for. Acquisition should always stay in your hands. I'm just a firm believer of that, because that's where your commission is.
It's the bloodline of the business. I mean, at least in that particular model, and sales altogether, right? It depends on what type of business you're in, but I think sales is one of the things that you can't get your finger off of. I go back to a previous company that I owned. I started to plug people into different spots, but I always kept my responsibility in contracting. So my job was to keep the clients, the flow of business coming into the business, and that was the one thing that I monitored the hardest.
Yeah.
It translates to the same thing in real estate. Sales and that portion of it. You can't just
100%.
hand it over and step away and
all
expect
businesses are marketing and sales. You are right to do that, and you're right to still think that, because if you take out that bloodline, that's where a large part of your costs goes. Cost of goods sold, right? COGS is in the sales component of it. Sales commissions, right? Employees. So you take out that COGS and you bring that back in-house and you handle it, that goes right to your bottom line, right? That's where a lot of people are paying 15, 20%, or maybe even more. That's a massive percentage, right?
Yeah.
So you're totally right on the head on that.
You mentioned something earlier about the difference in for example, I think the same in a very similar way. So I'm also kind of old school when it comes to businesses and setting up the processes, and it kind of I love the grind, honestly.
Yeah.
I love the work. I don't know what I would do if I had week to sit on my ass and not do anything.
I also would say I would
fucking
hate
crazy.
it.
Like,
Yeah.
so I like that portion. That's my expectation. That's kind of what I've been progressively conditioned to think and
Sure.
see business as, right? So I'm okay with it. I embrace it. I like it. Now, younger generations though, I see very different expectations. For example, getting wanting to get a return on investment or a return on the business just by posting or just by, and I don't want to generalize.
Sure.
Because it's kind of like a fine line right there, but it's the conversations that I've had with younger people, even coming into real estate. I mean, we'll stick to that topic. It's that, like, all right, cool, I can turn this on and then be rich in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
But a lot of new people coming into entrepreneurship, they skip the concept of the hustle, and you need that. I mean, you need unless you're funded, you're gonna have to go through that to be able to get out of survival mode and then start thinking clearly, at least.
You said it right on the head. So one of the biggest takeaways I learned when I helped my buddy start this really massive, really funded company, the major difference was the funding. Okay, so I was the 8th person they brought into this company. They immediately had north of $10 million of funding to grow the company, not for marketing, not for funding to grow the company. You and I don't have that ability more often than not. The people listening and watching, you don't have that ability more often than not. This is the VC space, venture capitalist space, that is so different than the mom and pop business owners, right? And what I watched was crazy. Within 10 months, we went from 8 people to 68 people. All salaried employees, all making 6 figures. Salaried. That is the major difference because of the funding. So could you, yes, go hire and replace yourself and you not have to do the work? 100%. But you better have an awesome business model. You be able to show the numbers of what your business model can do, and then you have to have funding, and a lot of it. And even then, the CEO and the president of said company still work their tail off, just not in the day-to-day of the business. They work their tail off in fundraising, raising more capital, systemizing the operational side. Like, they didn't take a break just because they had a very large company with a lot of funding. In fact, it probably worked harder because of it. Because now they're like, the obligation of that money pushes them to a place that if you've never had money or owe money or any of that, that feeling of that is like, it's immense. And so it's almost in inverse. The larger you get, the harder you're going to start to work. It's just in a different form. It's not, in our space again, meeting with a seller, but it is meeting with investors and banks and doing formulas and doing spreadsheets and pitch decks and all this other stuff that can fund the company so that it can create the revenue. So it's you brought up a great point that a lot of people don't know, because there's not a lot of financial education out there. It's one of the things that in my spot in the science of flipping, I want to help financially educate people on business, not just real estate, but on business, like COGS, cost of goods sold. We're not selling shoes, but there's still COGS in our business, and that would be the commissions you pay your salespeople. That's a COG. Everything else, for the most part, goes under expenses. A lot of people don't know that. The simplicity of a P&L is revenue minus COGS minus expenses equals profit.
Absolutely, I agree. One of the things that I get on a regular basis, and this is on a regular basis, almost scary, is whenever I deal with a lot of bootstrap kind of business. I'm a bootstrap guy. Every business that I've had was me kicking it off and then finding whatever I could to put it together.
Totally.
So I have a passion for bootstraps, right? To clarify that I don't mean bootstrap in a derogatory term. I love boots and straps, and then I put them together. But so one conversation that I keep having in consulting sessions and whenever I sit down with business owners is like we always hit profitability. Okay,
Yeah.
so what are your margins? We start talking about the P&L. We dissect that, projections and all that stuff. I kid you not, 80% of the time, the owners are not paying themselves first.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, it's one of the most important numbers.
Bro, read the
And
book. You're gonna talk
Yeah.
about this book all the time. This is all he talks about. The owners have to pay yourself first, and then there's 4 different bank accounts for
Right.
expenses, taxes, and savings. Dude, you'll love it.
Absolutely,
Profit
I'm picking
first.
it up today.
Yep.
So yeah, but it's one of those things that okay, I'll pay myself if I'm able to cover all the expenses. And I was actually talking about this on a previous episode, but it's one number. I mean, the owner's salary, it's hardly ever in the picture when people are starting, and it's understandable because you're trying, at the beginning of it. But as soon as you can generate money, start factoring in your worth,
Yeah.
your time, and your salary into it.
Why would you think that is? Why have you found, what would be the common denominator for all those, and I know you advise on different verticals, what would be the common denominator?
I think it's
Why don't they do that?
psychologically, it goes back to classical conditioning, the principle of classical conditioning. You start doing something one way, and then you keep at it, boom, 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 doing
Yeah.
it that way. So a lot of the times what happens with bootstrap businesses is that they'll operate, they're ballparking, 3 months to kick off. Next thing you know, projections are off, and that's 6 months. Or you know what, it extended to a year until profitability starts kicking in, and then they're just making.
And now they're broke.
Now they're broke, yes, but also they're used to doing business the exact same way as when they got started. And usually when they get started, they don't have themselves in the picture for payroll. So I'm gonna pay a lead manager. I'm gonna pay a sales rep. I'm gonna pay this and that, but they don't have themselves in it. And what
right.
happens is a year goes by and they haven't changed that way of operating business. So a lot of the times it's just the awareness of it.
That's right.
And when you're able to come in and then just kind of flip it and say, you know what, your profitability was not $100,000 this year because you didn't pay yourself. You pay yourself. It's part of the payroll.
That's part of the
so your
cost,
profitability,
right?
yeah, it's 40,000, and the whole thing just shifts.
So you said something that really, again, I'm very aware of this in business, right? They start out not paying themselves because they can't afford to. I'm going to relate it to like food trucks. I just love food trucks. I live usually the food, but like the business model. Think about this business model. They are the entire business, and
Right.
it's mobile,
Right.
but they do all the work. Most food trucks don't hire chefs and employees and sous chefs. They are the chef. They are the sous chef. They have a passion for being a chef, but they don't have money to start a restaurant, so they go buy a broken down van. They refurbished it, blah, blah, blah. Now they have this truck, right, that can cook in it. I love this, right? So whatever their cost was to do that, there's no other cost to their business except for gas and traveling, right? And so what happens is they're very similar to like the real estate investor. You don't pay yourself until you start making money. Yes, but what happens when you start making money is you want to outsource and start to hire and leverage and grow. And you're doing it too quick, right? We brought up Grant Cardone and Gary Vee. They're decades in the making. You didn't see Gary Vee when he left his wine shop and he said, okay, I'm going to go hustle my pants off to become who he is today, right? You didn't see Grant Cardone before he became the 10X guy 5 years ago. All that stuff, part of it is social media. Part of it is like people hire too quick and it takes time. The biggest thing I can offer any CEO or business owner in any industry is patience. Tony Robbins has a great quote, and I'll probably get it right, I hope. But it's, people underestimate what they can do in 10 years, but they overestimate what they can do in a year. Go for that 10-year vision, right? Like, why grow now? Why do you need a lead manager? Why do you need an acquisition manager? Why do you need a disposition manager? Why do you need? Just do the work. Literally put money in your pocket to a point of comfortability. Then you can start pulling people in having expenses or COGS in your business. What I believe is happening, people immediately, like a restaurant, you brought up you consult restaurants at times, like they go leverage themselves on the hilt to start. They're already in debt. Not only are they not making money, they're in massive debt between the restaurant, the food stuff, like the kitchen, the renovations of the actual restaurant, whatever that is, right? So now they go in, they say day one, okay, sold out house, but there's no money because they have so much debt that their note, their payments, whatever is so big, they make no money. Well, this is why I'm not a restaurateur. Like it is a.
That's a lot of work, man.
But
it's
that's
a scary industry.
That's the mindset, right? Why I can't pay myself yet because I have all this debt bills. They put themselves there. This is just a different industry, right? But the reality is they created too much debt, too much cogs, too much expenses. They can't pay themselves. It's just not the right way to do business, right? It doesn't make any sense. So I kind of went on a soapbox, but I'm so in alignment with what you're saying, bro. It's crazy, right? That people don't do that. I don't care if it's little. Pay yourself something, but you can only do that if you're doing the work. Anyways.
Well, that, and then you start creating the feeling and the sense of expectancy, and I mean, I think that I keep going back to that word, but I think it goes a long way in business. It's a very simple concept, but whenever you start, taking action on something and creating and doing work on something, you expect to get paid, right? If you do it right out of the gate, you're gonna start to expect psychologically a return on the amount of work that you're putting in.
Right.
But if you don't do it right out of the gate, you're also gonna start to expect nothing in return for whatever amount of work you're doing.
That's right.
I mean, it's just one of those mindset things that come in and can bite you from underneath when you're not expecting it. So you're in different verticals.
Yep.
Whenever you look at an opportunity, whenever you look at a new potential business, how do you go about it and how do you launch? What's your startup formula per se? I know there's no secret sauce, but your approach.
My approach really has been find the right partner. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to go start all these companies. You know what I'm really good at is investing in real estate, quite honestly. I'm really good at marketing and sales. Mm-hmm. And I'm really good at that, marketing and sales. I'm even better if you put me in marketing and sales of real estate. Mm. Right? So I could go into anyone and be a consultant to any company for marketing and sales and do really, really well. But I'm even better than that if you put that into the real estate space. But I also am a people person. My very superhuman power is people and sales. That's it. And I can relate to people and I get along with people and I build, friendships and camaraderie like no one's business. It's genuine, it's authentic, it's really a superhuman power of mine. So I'm always looking for who's the manager, who's the business partner that's going to run the company for me. And if I can be the finances, then awesome. Or if I could be the finances and the marketing and sales, great. Or if I could just be the sales, great. But then it's also believing in the business. I've also said no to a lot of, opportunities that someone said, hey, let's partner on this. Or, I've built this incredible thing and it's going good and here are sales. I really want you to come in and partner with me. And if I don't, A, either believe in it, or B, if it's going to take me away from my ultimate, kind of goals, mm-hmm. I just don't do it, right? But ultimately what I'm looking for is the other half, right? Because I'm not going to go start it. This goes back to the serial entrepreneur that starts 17 things and nothing really gets anywhere.
I got caught in the in the shiny object dilemma for a couple of years, where I was looking at different projects, but that was because I didn't really have a route,
sure.
That I wanted to go in or take. My first business was transportation. I don't like transportation. I didn't know a thing about transportation. I just saw the opportunity to capitalize. But what happens, you can create something that's good, and then time passes and you get bored with it, and then your motivation and drive and all that stuff just kind of, it just feels like something else, as opposed to, you know what, I can do something really good with this.
Yeah, I mean, that's a little bit of the frustration. I think people find a level of success and then they get bored, mm-hmm. and they want to just go to do something else because that love and energy is like, I'm not married. I'm about to actually get married 1 week, next week on Friday.
Congratulations.
So, hey, thank you, bro. Appreciate it. But everything I've ever heard about that is like you got the puppy love, you have the 2-3 years length, and then it's that same feeling isn't there, right? And that happens, and I'm not married, so I'll find this out soon. I'll tell you, I'll report back to see how you guys go. But the same thing happens in business, right? You have success, it's fun, it's hot, you're making a lot of money, things are going blah, blah, blah. And then it's like, okay, it's the same old, same old. What else is out there? And you see this thing and you're like, oh, I could crush whatever the fuck it is. And you go and you're like, okay, I'm gonna take my time, energy, and effort now that built this really good fucking thing that makes me a lot of money, and I'm gonna go do something else. Because that love or that passion or that hot like fire for it is gone. Mm-hmm. Man, is that a fucking crazy way to live. There's a handful of people that can do that well. More than most people drastically can't, right?
I agree. I think that that losing, and what happens? You lose the edge after a while. I mean, that's what happened to me, for example. I got really good with the company, and then I started delegating, and after a while, it was just like, all right, just keep it. I started to become mediocre in it.
Sure.
Meaning that I wasn't looking at pushing, growth, and also what happens is that you start putting a cap on the people that are with you. So it's unfair to the industry, one, it's unfair to the people, and it's also unfair to you. Whenever, and that's my belief, right? Whenever I spend too much time in something that I don't even like.
Yep.
I really like what you said about just knowing, what your superhuman power is, and capitalizing on that, and having other people come in. And
if you can hone in on that, dude, you will make way more money. You will be more successful. A lot of people don't. A lot of people want to be the visionary, the entrepreneur, the creative. It's not everybody. I hate to say it. Like it's more sexy, sure, rather than the operational, right? Rather than the systematic, organizational. Not quite as sexy. But if that's who you are, then own it, and you will be more successful and make more money. I promise, right? But then I think you said something that I wanted to touch on really quick, and I don't know how much time we got, but like,
we're good.
You kind of you were in this place of like you didn't really know what direction to go in. And I'm a firm believer, and I know you have your own clients, but like you need a mentor, you need a coach in life, right? Like I just hired 2 completely separate subject matter coaches for myself because this is how much I believe in it all the time, right? Not just when you need it, but all the time. Like coaching, mentorship, masterminds, all these things can help that dilemma when maybe you do have some options, but you don't know what direction to go into. Maybe you're going into a direction and you're like, I don't know if this, what do you do? Where do you go? Who's going to give you that advice? Is your mom and dad really the right person that you're going to say, hey, I have 2 different business opportunities. One's going to make me $750,000. One's going to make me $759,000. But this one has this upside. No, they're not going to. My point being is if you aren't investing in yourself and in someone who's been there and done that and has gone through it and can help you through these things, that's another entrepreneurial mistake. They view it as a cost.
Yeah.
It's an investment.
It's not.
Whether it's yourself or myself or Brent or Pace or Sean or Kent or anyone, I don't care. But like having the ability to have a mentor, an advisor, a coach would have saved you. And maybe you just didn't want to. Maybe you're like, I don't like being, vulnerable and asking for advice. But the reality is that's the reality is you could have had, whether it was me or Sean or any of the ones I know would be a mentor to you. If you would have had us and said, dude, I need to make some decisions. I have this, this, and this. Help. It would have shortened that learning curve. It would have shortened that decision-making process. Everything would have sped up. And that's what we're all here to do is let's make as much money as fast as we can so we can create a better life, right? And then you can put it in rentals and then you don't work a day in your life. You buy 4,000 doors and you're out.
Yeah,
I don't have to do a single thing.
You fulfill whatever you need to do.
But shorten that curve. I'm 38, so a lot of people would say, buy 1 rental a year and and by the time you're 65, you can look back and you're going to have whatever the number is.
You're going to have $1 million.
Okay, well, why can't you go buy 5 a year? Make more money. Don't pay yourself the money in that sense. Like, so let's just say you pay yourself $250,000 a year. All the money extra, you buy rentals. You don't pay yourself more than that. You buy rentals. That will expedite you into a wealth lifestyle. So I got kind of on a tangent here.
No. I agree. You're on point. So going back to the coaching, I was stubborn as fuck when it came to coaching, and I don't like people telling me what to do. It's just one of my virtues.
Sure.
I call it a virtue. I don't care what anybody else says.
I like you. Got to tell yourself something, man.
I know, it makes me feel happy.
That's right.
So I'm stubborn when it comes to to doing things, and I like doing things a certain way, and I like stuff my way. That's why I'm always running my business and all that stuff. But so what happened that switched my paradigm on that was me coming in to work for somebody like Sean. And so I spent a lot of time, sitting at the table with him, and I was working in his company, so I had to fucking listen.
Yeah.
It wasn't an option.
That's right.
But just being in an environment like that switched my mindset completely when it came to the value of coaching.
Absolutely.
Since then, I've done coaching in different stuff. Different subject matter experts from anywhere from mindset to fitness, personal growth, and every time I'm happy to make an expense,
Yep.
quote unquote, because I know I'm going to get that tenfold.
Yeah.
On a personal sense, and it always translates to profitability somehow, some way.
Amen.
So it's huge. It's huge, and I think there's a stigma against the coaching and the power of masterminds.
Yep.
That really shouldn't be there, man. Sometimes they happen organically, and very few occasions people can get lucky enough that it happens organically. But a lot of times you need to find the right minds to be around. One thing that cracks me up is people who are having or they're going through the process of crisis of meaning, for lack of a better term, they stay within their circle. You can't solve a problem like that if you stay within the same circle. You have to look to for different perspectives. You have to look outside your world into somebody else's, at least to borrow their lens.
That's right.
For a short period of time, and then see what that looks like. If you don't like that, and you move on. But you can't solve crisis of meaning by sitting in the same spot that you are and staying in the same sphere. Does that make sense?
We can end it right now. That was
Love it.
Drop it.
Love it.
I mean, all jokes aside, bro, that was great. That was really good.
Thank you. I appreciate it. So, no, bro. So, I know you're probably short on time, but yeah, so if somebody wants to find you, where do we find you? Before I head out, there's one question that I always ask. I think it's really cool.
Let's rock it.
If you were to run into your 17-year-old self, and I was super cocky when I was 17, that's why I keep going back to that age.
Okay.
What would you tell your 17-year-old self right now?
I was the opposite of cocky.
Yeah?
17 was like, I had that like growing and some acne. Like I did not have swagger when I was 17. I was not that guy.
That came along down the road.
Well, yeah, success helped build that, right? I think it would just be continue to be yourself, be genuine, be authentic, care. Again, the reason why people are my superhuman power, like I care. I really do care. Like my friends are like friends. Like I have friends literally from kindergarten. Still to this day, I'm 38 years old. We are still friends. They're coming to my wedding, right? Like, and so, continue to be authentic. Continue to be unapologetic. Just don't worry. About what people think. At 17, you give a shit a lot, right? Yeah. Closer to my age, you start to not give a shit, and then. At some level, you're kind of like, oh yeah, no one really cared in the first place, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, just be authentic, be yourself. Don't try to be something you're not, right? That would be the advice I give, and care about people. That'd be it.
I love it, man. I love it. Thank you so much. So if somebody wants to find you, you do a couple of different things. You do real estate coaching. You have the science of flipping.
I do, yeah.
So if somebody wants to find out more about you, more about that, and what you can offer.
I think social media is the best place, right? So Instagram is at the Justin Colby. Facebook is at the Justin Colby. But I do have a free group so I have a science flipping podcast on iTunes. So the science flipping podcast on iTunes, go listen to it. Free information. I built a group around it as well. That is just me. So it's not just audios, it's the visuals also, right? I have it closed only because I don't just want anyone in. I want it to be real estate specific. But if you're in real estate, ask to join. I'm going to approve you. So I have the Science of Flipping Academy group as well. And just shoot me questions, man. If there is any questions you have, hit me up on Instagram, hit me up on Facebook. And I'm happy to answer all those questions.
I love it. Once again, man, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you, bro.
There you guys have it. So, Justin Colby, stay tuned, stay focused. You got this.